Welcome back everyone to RimWorld Rawhide Part 2, where we are playing as two rootin' tootin' cowboys looking to build a leather and hide empire. Now damn near instantly we had some alpacas join us, and I was pretty tickled pink about that because shearing their wool, though we could kill them and get hide, shearing the wool would be a better alternative and it would regrow. We could continue doing that and selling it, as well as use it for our own clothing. We also had a migration of some majestic native wolves. Look how beautiful. Slightly less beautiful was this young lad with a green leather cap on who was very upset that we were growing cows and crops on his tribe's land. He was not very happy with us at all. Lucky for us though, a friendly tribe decided to send a trade caravan armed to the teeth to trade with us. Now this would be a problem for the little angry tribesman in the green leather cap because his tribe and this tribe, they were at war and he was severely outnumbered. Now Nixon had the bright idea to capture the handsome young lad and try to convert him over to our ways to join us, if you will. Well, the problem was, though, no matter how much cow dung and sand we stuffed into his wounds, he just wouldn't stop bleeding, and he eventually bled to death in that cave where we stored our hay for our cows. Shortly thereafter, I discovered one of the friendly tribe's people laying dead in our cotton field. It looked like he'd had a heart attack. I guess the excitement of battle was a little bit too much, and his old ticker gave out on him. The beauty of nature. Look at our little baby cows and stuff, and the alpacas are gonna have babies. It's gonna be wonderful. We are going to have an empire. But when you have an empire, you have to be prepared for people who want to tear down that empire and build one for themselves. We had this handsome little naked lad coming at us with a steel knife right there in the bloody hot desert. Lucky for us though, after a few buckshots to the old naked arse, we were able to subdue the nude man. A little bit later on, we had an offer from the local U.S. Marshals post that they would actually give us somebody to come and help us out here in our little ranch if we were to keep a person who wanted to learn about other cultures for a short period of time. So we promptly accepted, of course. Well, while our new guest was getting settled in, Dexter decided to play a game of throw the rock through the hole, and he was pretty damn good at it too. Now since we ended up having an extra set of hands, even though she was just there to learn about our culture, she could help us protect the ranch. I decided to send Nixon out with a small caravan of all the leather and cotton that we'd already gathered up and go ahead and sell that so we can go ahead and start making our leather empire. Shortly after Nixon returned, we actually had a weary group of travelers seeking refuge. They stated that they would come and help us here on the ranch for a while if we just gave them some shelter. So we went ahead and accepted and let them join us in our ranks. We did, of course, immediately make them go into our storage tent and go ahead and strip off any weapons they had on them just in case. Now none of our cowboys were all too intelligent enough to go ahead and research, but I'll tell you what, these refugees are smart enough to, so we went ahead and built them a research bench, and they wasted no time getting to work. Now while we were busy doing that, one of our alpacas went ahead and gave birth, just adding on to the number of animals we'd have, and so growing the empire. When daylight hit, we had one insane friggin' ostrich just coming at us, running right into camp, looking for humans to eat and bite and scratch and kick and go on. So we promptly shot it in the head a few times, kicked it around, stabbed it, threw sand in its eye, the old pocket sand trick, and eventually it ended up falling to our might. Then a little bit later on, we ended up sending Viper back after she learned about our culture, and Albina joined us from the U.S. Marshals post. Now Albina was butt-ass naked, but we wouldn't hold it against her. She still would make a good ranch hand. So I went ahead and traded with the local tribes people so we could get her a firearm. We let Nixon take the rifle because he's a better shot, and then let Albina have his little pistol. Sometime later I realized it'd probably be a good idea to build a viable place to store our hay where our animals could actually go in and eat it without it deteriorating away because of rain and that sort of thing. So I built a little barn. Shortly thereafter, a group of outlaws made an appearance in our territory, no doubt just trying to let us know that they are nearby, and at the moment they're not hostile, but how long before that would change? Now at one point, Nixon was on this just insulting rampage. I don't know what took over the fella, but one of the refugees did not take too kindly to it, and just turned around with a log in her hands and just started beating the absolute crap out of him until he shut his mouth. And as soon as we closed our eyes at night and we were sleeping soundly in our tents, we had another group of vicious tribespeople attacking us. Now those tribesmen, they put up one hell of a fight. They truly were warriors. But in the end, unfortunately for them and their cute little leather helmets and bow and arrows and spears and whatever else they decided to arm themselves with, they were not indestructible, and our bullets surpassed through their flesh like jello. Albina ended up cornering one of the tribe's people and knocked them down. So then we ended up capturing them, and we decided to actually enslave them. Yeah, that's all right. I'm going for a real cowboy experience here. Not long after, though, God punished us with a bunch of plague on our critters, on our livestock, our only livelihood that was going to make us into a cash cow, pun intended. We tried tending to them the best we could with what little herbal medicine we had, and also I suppose we stuffed some sand into the plague, perhaps, or some mud, I'm not really sure, but in the end we ended up losing quite a few of our cows, and which was very sad, but at least they could still repopulate. Now during that night, under a starlit sky, as our cows were just dying from the plague left and right, somebody managed to actually enslave that tribesman that was attacking us. He would be very useful for tending to the animals, as well as sewing up some nice fancy leather dusters for us. But before he could do that, we ended up using a lot of leather and cloth and other textiles that we actually had lying around from animals and whatnot to build everyone some fancy new sweet little tents. But in the middle of building those tents, we lost Natsuki, our cow. She was actually one of the first cows that we spawned in with when we entered this beautiful desert. But of course, a good thing cannot go on for too long. While building our beautiful leather tents for all our nice occupants, we were raided again by another local tribe. As they were running across the river, screaming and wielding knives and clubs and other sorts of weapons like that, we gathered around the steam geyser next to our tents and our hoopstone ring, and we were prepared to make our final stand. As our alpacas galloped around the tents and we were firing at the tribal people and they were swinging their clubs and their knives and that sort of thing, we eventually ended up defeating them and we were victorious. Now, one of the refugees we took in proved not to be totally useless, and she ended up researching complex clothing for us and then began on basic furniture so we could build some nice cowboy beds. We had Dexter go ahead and build us a tailoring bench so we could force our slave to go in there and make us some nice dusters and ponchos and sombreros, cowboy hats, all that wonderful Western attire. Later on that night, in a fit of rage, I don't know what made him so angry, but Nixon just absolutely lost his shit, and he started taking it out on the tents. He took the butt of his rifle and just started beating the absolute hell out of the tents we had just built the day before. This is why we cannot have nice things. In the middle of the night, in the pitch dark storage tent, one of the refugees finally started making a few articles of clothing for us. How kind of him. However, that would not last for long, as we had yet another tribal raid coming to try and sack us. Dexter and Nixon mounted the alpacas and they galloped over to where we'd been burying the dead with the others to make a stand to protect our land. Everyone fought extremely well, even the refugees that had been staying with us. They put up quite the fight. Even though this was not their land, they were willing to defend it. And thankfully our alpacas were very quick, and we were actually able to run circles around the tribe's people pretty well the entire time while firing at them, so we did have the upper hand. And eventually, of course, 'twas inevitable that we ended up defeating those tribes people, as we always do, always defending our livestock, our land, and our leather empire to be. But this will conclude part 2 of RimWorld Rawhide. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and all that junk. And yeah, I hope you guys have enjoyed. I will definitely see you in the next one. Stay tuned for part 3, hopefully sometime next week. You guys have a great day. You are absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.